You don't know where you are. You don't know how you got here. But you know one thing. Something's watching. Imagine waking up face down on hot volcanic stone. The air smells like burned incense and blood. The sky above is blindingly blue, but your eyes won't stop twitching. You hear drums, not music. War drums. Heavy, thundering, fast. And then, a whisper. You turn. Dozens of stone serpents are staring right at you. Their mouths open, their teeth bared, their eyes wide with the kind of hunger that feels ancient. You try to run, but your body's heavy. You look down, and your wrists are tied. Welcome to Teotihuacan, the city where gods were born, and where humans were offered to keep them alive. Before we go further, if you've got the courage to spend the next 24 hours in a place that made the Aztecs terrified, then hit that like button, subscribe, and comment what time it is where you're watching this. I want to know who's joining this ritual. From around the world, now dim the lights, because this isn't just history. This is your initiation. Before the mighty Aztecs ever marched through the Valley of Mexico, before they raised their gold-covered temples and sacrificed hearts on top of pyramids, there was a city, not just a city, a monolith. It had no king's name, no written records, no epic poems to boast its rise, but it was enormous, larger than ancient Rome at its peak, a perfectly aligned metropolis with wide boulevards, apartment complexes, and pyramids the size of skyscrapers. And at the center of it all, a temple unlike anything else in Mesoamerican history. A temple built not for comfort, but for fear. Its name is the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, and beneath it lies a secret. Over 200 decapitated bodies, buried in ritual formations. Their hands bound, their eyes never shut. You're about to spend one day, just one, inside this city, and by the end of it, you'll understand why no one dared write its name. Because you don't write the name of a god that still listens. Welcome to Teotihuacan, year 225 CE. It's just after dawn. The sky is golden, but the ground is already warm, because this city is built from volcanic stone that remembers fire. You are no noble. You are no priest. You are a worker, one of thousands, living in a pact. Apartment block made of stone, mud, and silence. There is no personal space. You sleep shoulder to shoulder with your family, your neighbors, and their coughs. You dream in whispers because the walls aren't thick enough to keep secrets. Outside, the first thing you see isn't the sun. It's the temple, even from miles away. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent dominates everything. Its carved snakeheads seem to track you as you move. Its fangs are open. Its eyes bulge like it just heard your thoughts. And in a way, it did. Because nothing here is just stone. Food is not pleasure. Food is ritual. You sit on the ground, knees tucked in, and eat from a bowl of atole, a corn-based mush that tastes like sadness and sand. There's no salt, no spice, no joy. You chew slowly, because you're not sure if it's food or clay in your mouth. A single roasted locust is the protein of the day. Its legs still twitch. Your mother hands you a small black stone amulet. Carved into it, the spiral of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. She tells you, today is your test. You don't know what that means, but she won't look you in the eye. You're marched to the temple plaza, the epicenter of the city. This is no open square. It's a stage for death. You carry baskets of obsidian shards, each one razor sharp, used not for war, but for sacrifice. A priest in crimson robes walks past you. His face is painted like a skull. In his hands, a heart still dripping from the morning's first offering. No one screams. No one looks. This is normal. You hammer stones into a wall made of other people's bones. Decorative. Necessary. Sacred. You. Know this. Every pyramid built in this city has bodies inside it. The foundations are soaked in human blood, not metaphorically, literally, and as you work, you realize something horrifying. The blood makes the stone stick better. The ancients figured it out, and they never stopped. The sun is directly overhead now. Its heat beats down like a hammer, but no one dares complain, because in Teotihuacan, even the weather is a god, and it listens. You're led away from the construction site, down a long hallway carved into the pyramid itself. The air is thick, not with heat, but with the smell of iron and rot. Your stomach clenches. This is not your usual path. At the end of the hallway, you see it, the Sampantli. The skull racked out hundreds of them, cleaned, polished, displayed, like trophies. Each skull has 2 holes bored into the sides. They're threaded onto wooden poles, grinning in the half-light, like they're all in on some sick joke you haven't heard yet. Some skulls have gold teeth, others still wear jewelry. That one still has part of a face attached. A priest leans in and whispers to you, "These are not the dead. These are the chosen." You don't reply, because your voice would crack. And weakness is an invitation. The drums begin again, louder now, booming like thunder in your chest. The plaza fills with people, all silent. Women, children, warriors, traders. Everyone is watching. And then they bring them out, the bound, naked, kneeling, terrified. Their chests are marked with charcoal spirals, the sign of offering. You hear the high-pitched whistle made from a skull. The crowd doesn't cheer. They don't cry. They breathe in once, as if to hold their soul in place. Then the obsidian blade flashes. It's so sharp, there's no sound. Just a wet thud and a scream that never finishes. The priest holds up the heart, still beating. Steam rising from the open chest cavity like a sacrifice to the sky. Then another. Then another. You lose count. You lose the feeling in your legs. You lose something else too. Your belief in humanity. You thought this was madness, but no one runs. No one protests, because here, this isn't murder. It's maintenance. They believe the sun won't rise tomorrow unless this happens. And right now, as the crowd bows in perfect unison, you start to believe it too. After the ceremony, you're dismissed, but you don't go home. Not yet. Instead, you wander. Down alleys too narrow for carts. Past markets where nothing is for sale, only for tribute. Past murals of serpents devouring men. Past stone carvings of gods with too many eyes. You arrive at a small courtyard. Empty except for one man, old, blind. Covered in soot, he tells you something. That the city was built by ghosts. That the stars told them where to build. That the serpents live beneath the temple still, waiting for a signal. This city isn't a place, he whispers. It's a machine. And blood is the oil. You laugh nervously. He doesn't. You should be asleep, but sleep avoids you. So you wander again, back to the temple. Past guards who don't see you. Past priests who pretend not to. You find a small tunnel entrance. A slit in the earth. You crawl in, and what you find shouldn't exist. A chamber under the temple. Walls lined with mica. A glittering mineral that reflects like starlight. Pools of liquid mercury, shining like portals. Carvings in the stone of serpents, stars, and you? Yes, a face that looks just like yours, screaming into a void. You step back, and the whisper returns. Now you understand. You are not here by chance. You were called. Your head spins. Your heart races. And for the first time in your life, you wonder if your soul has already been weighed, and if it was found wanting. You survived a day in Teotihuacan, but something followed you out. You still hear the drums. You still see the serpents in your dreams. And when you look in the mirror, something about your eyes feels older if you made it this far. Prove it. Hit that like button. You've earned it. Drop a emoji in the comments so I know you're one of the survivors. And subscribe, because in the next episode, we're going deeper into the sacrificial tunnels, the astronomical alignments, and the true purpose of this impossible city. Welcome to the beginning of the end. Part 2, the blood grid, how Teotihuacan controlled the gods. The more you stare at it, the less it looks like a city, and more like something alive, like a machine. A machine built to keep the gods from tearing the sky open. Teotihuacan wasn't built like other cities. It doesn't spiral around a palace. It doesn't curve along a river. It's straight, geometric, surgical. The central avenue runs at an exact 15.5 offset from true north. The pyramids align with astronomical events. The temples are placed at precise intervals, as if someone drew a blueprint based on the stars and spilled blood to make it real. This isn't urban planning. It's cosmic programming. You weren't just walking on roads yesterday. You were walking on a map of the heavens, drawn in obsidian and ash. Before we decode this divine puzzle, take a second, like the video. Subscribe if you want to survive the next ritual, and tell me in the comments, what would you sacrifice to keep the universe in balance? Let's start with the basics. Most cities form organically, around food, trade, power. But Teotihuacan doesn't curve or flow. It marshes. Everything from its narrow alleyways to its temple altars feels like it was designed for something other than people. At its heart is the Avenue of the Dead. It stretches for miles, flanked by stone platforms that once held statues, shrines, and sacrifices. The name isn't symbolic, it's literal. This was a processional route for priests, captives, and blood. A parade ground for cosmic theater. The Pyramid of the Sun stands directly along this avenue, bigger than Egypt's stepped pyramids. But it's not just big, it's placed with intention. It aligns with the setting sun on specific ritual days, especially those tied to agriculture, war, and rebirth. Beneath the pyramid, a tunnel, filled with mica, obsidian, and chambers arranged to mimic the underworld itself. Teotihuacan's builders weren't improvising. They were following a pattern, a blood grid, a map to control the gods. The city's layout mimics celestial alignments. Let's look at the numbers. The Pyramid of the Moon is aligned with Cerro Gordo, the sacred mountain to the north, considered a divine source of water, breath, and life. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent aligns with Venus, the planet of war, sacrifice, and divine messengers in Mesoamerican myth. Even the distances between temples reflect calendar cycles to 260 days, 365 days, and the synodic cycle of Venus, 584 days. Coincidence? No, these were cosmic timers. Not clocks, but deadlines, for when sacrifices needed to occur to reset reality. The priests weren't just slaughtering for fun. They were maintaining equilibrium. If they got it wrong, drought, famine, earthquakes, or worse, divine silence. You can ignore a god's voice, but if it stops speaking, that's the end of the world. Let's return to the Temple of the Feathered Serpent, also known as the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. You saw its serpent heads yesterday. Dozens of them, snarling, watching, but those heads aren't decorations. They're counting devices. Each set represents a day, a direction, a ritual stage, and behind the stone facade, 200 plus human sacrifices, buried in exact formation, quadrants, rows, cardinal directions. The victims had their hands bound. Some wore necklaces made of human teeth. They weren't just killed. They were installed like living components of a ritual engine. And here's the horror. The more archaeologists study the temple, the more they believe it was built to simulate the universe, and the sacrifices were like offering fuel to a divine machine to keep the gears of time spinning. In 2003, archaeologists discovered something terrifying. A tunnel beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Not a sewer, not a drainage ditch. A perfect subterranean path. Its walls were covered in pyrite, fool's gold, to mimic starlight. Its floor glimmered with liquid mercury, symbol of rivers and underworld currents. Its chambers were filled with jade statues, rubber balls, and obsidian blades. It wasn't for storage. It was a simulation. Walking through it would be like walking through the Milky Way, or the spiritual dimension between life and death. Some believe this tunnel was used in initiation rituals. A priest would descend alone, and if he returned, he came back as a vessel for the divine. But what if someone entered and didn't come back alone? Let's put the pieces together. The city is aligned with the stars. Its pyramids are loaded with symbolism tied to blood, rebirth, and death. It has underground tunnels that simulate the spiritual world. Its people vanished without a trace. Here's the theory no one wants to say out loud. Teotihuacan wasn't a city. It was a ritual construct, a giant clock made to manipulate time, fate, and the gods. Its leaders didn't rule by politics. They ruled by cosmic understanding. They didn't need to speak. The city itself spoke for them. When a foreign emissary arrived, he would walk the avenue of the dead, stand beneath the fangs of serpents, and witness a sacrifice under a sky that seemed to respond. There was no need for armies. Teotihuacan conquered by fear, by awe, by showing you the sky itself bent to its will. And then, suddenly, it ended. Around 550 CE, the elite compounds burned. Temples were defaced. The ritual centers were abandoned, but the residential neighborhoods survived. This wasn't war from outside. It was an uprising from within. Some say the common people got tired of bleeding. Others whisper that the blood grid stopped working and the gods turned away. But one thing's certain, Teotihuacan fell, not with a bang, but a whisper. The gods stopped speaking, and that silence still lingers. You walked on stone, but it was never just stone. It was a language, a prayer written in geometry, powered by blood, aimed at eternity. Teotihuacan didn't die. It went underground. It waits, buried in ash, mercury, and fear. If you made it through. Part 2, comment, so I know you've entered the grid. Like, subscribe, and brace yourself, because in Part 3, we're going inside the sacrificial ceremony itself, not as a viewer, but as the next offering. You're not just watching anymore. You're chosen. Part 3, the chosen one. What it feels like to be sacrificed in Teotihuacan. You always thought death was the end, but here it's just an upgrade. You're kneeling, not by choice, not in prayer, but because your knees gave out the moment the priest whispered your name. Around you, the plaza is silent. Thousands of faces, but you feel none of them because their eyes are not on you. There, above you, on the pyramid, where a robed figure is waiting. You try to scream, but your mouth doesn't open because it's not tied. It's full, stuffed with obsidian dust. Your heartbeat becomes the only drum you can hear now. You are the chosen one, but chosen for what? Before we begin the most feared ritual of Teotihuacan, smash that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you take someone's place? If it meant saving the world? You thought being chosen was an honor. They dressed you in feathers and gold, painted your face in spirals and stars, danced around you while singing your name. You believed you were going to be blessed. They told you, you are the bridge. You are the sunrise between worlds. But now, as they drag you up the stairs, you understand. This isn't a celebration. It's a calibration. The machine needs fuel. And you're premium. The Pyramid of the Moon rises before you. 246 steps. Each one higher than the last. Each one stained a little darker near the edges. Your ankles are bound with cloth. Your arms with rope. But still, they make you climb. Why? Because the gods don't want you carried. They want you to struggle, to fight, because the fight makes the sacrifice sweeter. At the top, the wind changes. The air is thin. Your head spins, and then the altar stone. Cold, wet, not from water. 4 priests surround you. North, south, east, west. They chant in a language older than memory. Your name is now part of a song you don't recognize. They anoint your chest with copal smoke, a scent between pine and flesh. They press your back into the altar. The obsidian touches your skin. It doesn't feel like stone. It feels like something watching you from inside the blade. You can't move. You can't scream. You hear drums. Not from the plaza. From inside your own ears. Your blood is preparing to leave. The priest doesn't ask. He doesn't hesitate. The obsidian plunges through your chest, but it's not pain that hits you. It's clarity. You see the stars, not above you, but beneath. You feel the sun pulling at your bones. You hear a voice, not from the priest, from inside your own skull. Thank you, it says. You were always meant for this. You realize the gods are not watching. They're inside you now, and then darkness. But it's not the end. It's the opening of a door. Your body is still on the altar, but your consciousness? It floats. You watch your own chest cavity smoking. The priest lifts your heart high into the sunlight. The crowd gasps, not in horror, but in awe. You are now part of the story. Your name will be carved in whispers. Your blood smeared in geometry. You drift over the city, and for the first time, you understand the layout. The pyramids aren't just buildings. They're organs. The tunnels are veins. The altars are synapses. You were not sacrificed. You were uploaded to something bigger, something ancient, something alive. As your soul hovers over Teotihuacan, you see something no one else ever will. Beneath the temple of the Feathered Serpent, a hidden chamber. Inside it, a single obsidian mirror, still black, endless, and in that mirror, your face, still alive, still breathing. It speaks to you. You're not the first. You won't be the last. This world doesn't need gods. It just needs believers. You scream, but it echoes with 1,000 voices, all yours, each one from a different timeline. This isn't a sacrifice. It's a reboot, and you're the button. You wake up on your mat. In your apartment, morning again. The plaza is quiet. The sky is pink. Your mother hands you a tole. You drink slowly, but you feel wrong. Like your skin fits someone else's skeleton. You step outside. The temple is still there, but today it doesn't look like stone. It looks like it's breathing. And in the shadow of the pyramid, you see a child, face painted like yours, eyes full of fear, being led up the stairs. You try to call out, but your voice stays, buried somewhere in the altar. You've just lived through what few could imagine. The mind of a sacrifice. Not dead, not alive, just processed. If you made it to the end of part 3, drop a comment. I heard the drums. Like, subscribe, and brace for part 4, because next we're going underground to the caves of the obsidian priests, where they spoke to stars, read fear, and cut out their own eyes to see better. You've survived the blade, but can you survive what sees in the dark? Part 4. Blind Priests and Living Shadows inside Teotihuacan's secret cult. They didn't lose their sight. They gave it up, because some truths are easier to see in darkness. There's a room you weren't supposed to find, hidden behind the Pyramid of the Moon. No guards, no light, just a tunnel that breathes colder the deeper you go. Your torch flickers, and then goes out on its own, but there are voices in the dark, whispers. You're not alone down here, because this is where the obsidian priests live or used to. If you can call it living, they were chosen for their silence, revered for their pain, and worshipped for their blindness, because in Teotihuacan, to see the gods, you had to lose your eyes. Before we take a torch into this tomb, do what the gods demand. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, would you give up your sight to gain ultimate knowledge? You stumble upon the entrance by accident. A stone slab, just wide enough to slip through. No markings, no guards. Just a feeling like it's been watching you since birth. Inside, a narrow passage. Walls coated in ash. Ceiling low enough to scrape your back. The deeper you go, the heavier the silence becomes, and then you find it. A round room, carved entirely of black obsidian. The air is thick with resin, mold, and something sweet. Rotting sweet. You light a torch. That's when you see them. There are figures in the corner, not statues, mummified bodies, sitting cross-legged, backs straight, each one facing inward, toward a black stone monolith in the center. Their faces are wrapped in cloth, but the cloth is stained, right where the eyes used to be. A thick, dark crust, dried blood, and deeper down, black ink. You realize they didn't go blind. They were blinded, but not out of punishment, out of devotion. These weren't ordinary priests. They were the keepers of the wordless scroll, a doctrine never written, only memorized, only passed through pain. It said that true vision, the kind needed to see the gods, came only after shedding physical sight, because the gods didn't appear in light. They moved in shadows. They whispered between breaths. They stood in the blind spot of your soul. Each priest had to earn their blindness through a ritual called the veil. They would kneel for 13 days, fasting, meditating, chanting. Then, on the 14th, they would pierce their eyes with obsidian shards, not to kill, but to reopen their mind's eye. You thought horror was physical. You were wrong. At the center of the room is the monolith. It's smooth, black, cold, even in this suffocating heat. You approach it, and as you get closer, you hear it. A voice, not outside, not inside, under you, a chant, repeating the same phrase, Ixom Te Chao. Ixom Te Chao. Your ears ring, your nose bleeds. The floor vibrates like a heartbeat, and then the walls move. Are they just shadows? You spin. No one's there, but the priests' heads have turned. They're facing you now. This is no tomb. It's not ancient. It's active. One of the priestly figures begins to rise, skin crackling, bones popping, cloth dragging against the stone, no breath, no voice, just motion. He walks to you slow, deliberate, and points at your eyes. You fall, shake, plead, but he doesn't strike. Instead, he places his fingers on your eyelids, and for one terrifying moment, you see what he sees. You are not in the chamber anymore. You are in a void, colorless, formless, infinite. You see Teotihuacan, not from the sky, but from beneath it. From the god's perspective, you see rivers of blood forming symbols. You see stars answering prayers. With light, you see people walking with their own death dates etched into their shadows. And then you see yourself, sacrificed, revived, ascending the pyramid again. You were chosen not to die, but to witness, to remember, to carry the message. You awaken back in the chamber. On the ground, covered in sweat, the priest is gone. The other figures are still. The monolith is cracked, as if it broke when it spoke to you. You crawl out. The light outside is blinding, but your eyes don't flinch, because now you don't see the world. You see its echo, its intent. You were initiated, not into power, but into knowledge so terrifying, only the blind can carry it. You made it out of the cult, but something in you stayed behind. You blink now, and you see shapes moving in lightless corners. You hear chants in white noise. You dream of pyramids with no stairs, just teeth. If you heard the voice in the dark, comment, "I saw without eyes." Like, subscribe, and stay with me, because in part 5, we're going into the war chamber, where Teotihuacan trained its holy assassins, where prisoners weren't kept in chains. They were turned into weapons. Welcome to the next layer of fear. Part 5, the war priests, how Teotihuacan trained living weapons. You have seen their murals, warriors with jaguar skins and obsidian blades. But what if I told you those were not warriors? They were living gods, programmed for war. A drum beat echoes down a stone corridor. It's not music. It's code. You follow it. The walls are slick with humidity. And something else. Something that smells like copper and rot. You turn a corner. There they are. Dozens of them. Naked but painted. Blackened eyes. Red teeth. Holding blades made of volcanic glass sharper than surgical steel. These are the war priests of Teotihuacan. A sacred class of killers trained not in battle, but in ritualized warfare. Not mercenaries. Not soldiers. Living weapons. Like this video. Subscribe and tell me in the comments. Could you fight, kill, and die, not for a nation, but for a god made of silence? There are no open battlefields in Teotihuacan. Just courtyards turned into training grounds. Stone pits slick with blood and sweat. They call it the Barracks of Echoes. Every morning, boys are dragged here. Some orphans, some chosen, none willing. They kneel, heads shaved, names erased. They are not men anymore. They are empty vessels, waiting to be filled with divine fury. The first ritual? Silence. 7 days of darkness, blindfolded, no food, only obsidian water and whispered chants. Lie. The time the week ends, they've stopped asking questions, because answers don't come here, only commands. You have seen jaguars on Teotihuacan murals, stalking, leaping, devouring. That's not art. That's doctrine. Each recruit is assigned an animal identity. Jaguars for power, serpents for speed, owls for death and silence. But the jaguar is the highest honor, and to earn it, you must pass the hunt. One recruit is chosen as the prey, naked, unarmed, given a 30-second head start into the jungle outside the city walls. The others are sent after him. Whoever kills him without leaving a mark on the body becomes the next jaguar priest. They don't just train you to kill. They train you to make it beautiful. War in Teotihuacan wasn't chaotic. It was a ceremony. Every fight began with an offering, a drop of your own blood on the blade, then a prayer, not to win, but to make the death clean. Opponents were often drugged with a plant called Teotihuacan, a hallucinogenic herb that made pain disappear but kept consciousness alive. They wanted you to feel the blade, because pain was the signal to the gods that a life was arriving. Every slash was choreographed. Every scream, part of the divine script. Their weapons weren't made of bronze or iron. They used obsidian volcanic glass, sharper than razors. One slice could decapitate. Another could deep enough to show you your own lungs. But what's more terrifying? Their armor made from hardened human femurs, crocodile skin, cloth soaked in blood and ash, skulls strapped as shoulder plates. The armor wasn't protection. It was identity theft. Each warrior wore the remains of a previous sacrifice, so the gods would think he was already dead, and let him walk among the living invisible. If that doesn't haunt you, you haven't seen the way they smiled before the strike. They didn't just fight. They broke you before the blade ever touched skin. Captured enemies weren't chained. They were shown the rituals, the music, the sacrifice. They were invited to join, and many did, because Teotihuacan warriors didn't fight for glory. They fought for ascension. They were told, if you die with your heart still beating in your chest, you die forever. But if you die with your blood on the altar, you rise again. As fire, you didn't fight them. You became them. On the 4th day of the 8th month in 378 CE, a man arrived. His name? Teotihuacan. Fire is born. He didn't bring an army. He brought 8 jaguar priests. They marched into Maya cities hundreds of miles away. And by sunset, those cities had fallen. No siege, no catapults, no diplomacy, just 8 men trained to kill like gods. Teotihuacan wasn't a king. He was a prophet of destruction, sent by Teotihuacan to reset the world. And when they were done, the Maya changed their calendars to mark his arrival, as if time itself had to start over. But becoming a war priest came at a price. Most didn't live past 30. Their bodies couldn't take the rituals, the fasting, the poison, the voices. Many went mad. Some tore their own skin, believing snakes were crawling underneath. Others walked into the jungle and never returned. But those who lasted were immortalized in murals, always in motion, always mid-kill, their faces smeared with red, their eyes missing entirely. Because to the gods, the best warriors never needed to see their victims. They just felt the rhythm of death. You thought sacrifice was the peak of fear? Try fighting someone who wants to die. You thought war was fought for power? Not in Teotihuacan. Here, war was fought to feed the stars. If this episode scarred you in a good way, comment. Blood was the blessing? Like, subscribe, and join me in part 6, where we'll go inside the pyramid of the moon itself. Not just its steps, but its lungs, its voice, and the thing sealed at its core. You've survived the warriors. Now meet what they were protecting. Part 6, The Heart of the Moon. Secrets buried inside Teotihuacan's second pyramid. You've seen pyramids before, but never one with a heartbeat. You stand at the base of the Pyramid of the Moon. It looms over the northern end of Teotihuacan, silent, shadowed, imposing. But today, it doesn't feel silent. You feel a pulse beneath your feet, a faint rhythm, like a heartbeat, like the earth itself is breathing. You've climbed it before. You've bled beside it. But now, you're going inside, and what's buried deep inside this pyramid is not treasure, not a tomb. It's an intelligence, and it's waiting for you. Before we step into its chamber, give this a like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Would you enter a living pyramid alone? Unlike the massive pyramid of the sun, this pyramid doesn't shout. It listens, smaller in height, but older in spirit. It sits at the end of the Avenue of the Dead, like a gatekeeper, a sentinel. Built in 7 stages over centuries, the Pyramid of the Moon was designed not as a tomb, but as a container. Each stage was a layer of protection, sealing something inside, and now you have permission to open it, but you were never told what it's protecting us from. A narrow tunnel was carved into its belly, not by looters, but by the original builders. Why? Because this wasn't just a monument. It was a ritual device. As you enter, the air changes. It's cool, dry, too dry, as if the space around you hasn't been disturbed in thousands of years. Your torch flickers, and then you hear it. A whisper that's not a voice. It's movement, from stone to stone, like something alive inside the walls. You push deeper. You step into a room, circular, domed, suffocating. At its center, a stone slab on it, a skeleton, not buried, displayed arms tied behind the back, neck twisted, eyes missing, tongue replaced with a tiny obsidian blade surrounding the slab. Animals, pumas, eagles, snakes, all sacrificed, all facing inward, all with teeth bared. This wasn't a burial. It was a containment ritual. They weren't honoring this person. They were pinning it in place. But what kind of human needs to be chained by beasts? Archaeologists discovered something odd about this pyramid. It's not aligned like the others. Instead, its angles mimic the rising of the Pleiades, a star cluster often linked with rebirth, time resets, and celestial calendars. The burial chamber is placed exactly where the star cluster would sit if projected through the structure. Meaning, this wasn't just architecture. It was a lens, a channel, a receiver. Whoever was buried here was being watched by the sky itself, or worse, fed instructions. From it, there's another tunnel, lower. Not on maps. You crawl through it. It smells metallic, rotten, faintly sweet. And when you reach the next chamber, you realize why. The walls are lined with stone troughs, pipes carved into the rock itself. Pyramid was plumbed, but not for water, for blood. Every sacrifice on the top platform, the blood would flow down channels, through pipes, into this hidden reservoir. You are standing in a lake of dried sacrifice, and at the center, a carved obsidian mirror, cracked, but still reflecting. You look into it, but you don't see yourself. You see movement, a procession of priests in red, chanting, throwing heart after heart onto a stone slab, and the moment the 13th heart lands, the mirror shifts. A shape appears, tall, inhuman, wrapped in feathers and scales. Its face is a void, but its eyes? You've seen those before. They're your eyes. The mirror shatters, and suddenly you're on your back. The torch is out. The chamber is silent, except for one thing. Dripping, wet, slow, fresh something has just entered the room. You crawl backward, reach for your blade, but your fingers find only dust, and then a breath right behind your ear, cold, whispered, not a word, a sensation. You stand, the air thickens, the darkness feels alive. Then it vanishes, just like that, gone. You stumble out of the chamber, up through the tunnels, into daylight. The plaza feels wrong now. Too bright, too loud. You look back at the pyramid, and in the shadow of the top tier, something moves, watching. You went inside the Pyramid of the Moon, expecting history. You found a warning. This wasn't just a temple. It was a container, a prison, and now it's cracked. If you heard the whisper, comment. It moved in the shadows. Like, subscribe. Because in Part 7, we'll uncover Teotihuacan's doomsday code, a pattern so terrifying. It suggests the city wasn't built to last forever. It was built to self-destruct, with us inside it. Part 7, the Teotihuacan Code, the hidden countdown to apocalypse. It was not a city. It was a calendar, not tracking time, but counting down. You've been walking down the Avenue of the Dead for hours now, but something feels wrong. You start to notice things. Every plaza spaced exactly 260 units apart. Every step of every pyramid divisible by 13 and 20. Every wall, angled to catch the sunrise on a specific day. This city isn't random. It's a machine. A machine programmed with numbers older than any civilization. But what is it counting down to? Hit like, subscribe, and comment. Would you live in a city designed to erase itself? Because what comes next will change the way you think about time, space, and what ancient people truly feared most. The central spine of Teotihuacan, the Avenue of the Dead, stretches over 2 miles, lined with pyramids, shrines, and courtyards. But here's the thing. It's not straight. It's tilted exactly 15.5 degrees east of true north. Why? Because it aligns with the setting of the Pleiades during specific rituals. But even weirder, the length of the avenue correlates with the Mesoamerican 260-day calendar. Each section of the road, a unit of time. You weren't walking through a city. We're moving through a countdown. Every stone, a second. Every shrine, a warning. Teotihuacan was obsessed with 13 and 20. 13 layers of the heavens. 20. Fingers and toes, symbols of human completeness. 13 multiplied by 20 is equal to 260. The sacred number of the Teotihuacan calendar, used to track spiritual time. And Teotihuacan. Every measurement in its architecture reflects this number. 260 steps between structures. 260 glyphs in underground murals. 260 sacrificial pits found around the moon pyramid. But it doesn't stop there, because when the city's layout is converted into a digital model, an AI researcher made a terrifying discovery. A pattern began to emerge, a spiral. This spiral wasn't decorative, it was recursive, like the golden ratio. The city wasn't built outward randomly. It grew like a shell, coiling in perfect mathematical precision. Each major structure placed exactly where it would fall in. The spiral's path, and at the very center, a small, unmarked pit, only 2 feet deep, filled with ash and teeth. This wasn't a trash pit. It was a reset point. A marker for when the spiral would collapse inward. A self-destruct countdown. But why? Build a city meant to end? Teotihuacan's priests didn't see time as linear. To them, time was cyclical, like seasons. Like breath, but their calendar showed something disturbing. Every 5,125 years, everything ends, not metaphorically. Literally, earthquakes, volcanoes, famine, madness. They called it the fifth sun, our current era, and they believed they were nearing the end of it. So they built Teotihuacan as a clock to measure the final breaths of this world, and a ritual, engine to survive the transition into the next. But it didn't work, because something triggered the countdown early. Recent excavations near the Feathered Serpent Pyramid uncovered something terrifying. A chamber filled with stripped skeletons, but not ordinary ones. Each one was, between 17, 22 years old, nearly identical in build, born with extra teeth. A rare genetic marker all buried at once. Archaeologists theorized they were clones, not literal, but ritually bred humans selected for one purpose: to delay the apocalypse. By sacrificing the same genetic body over and over, they believed they could trick the gods, keep the sun rising, reset the clock. But eventually, they ran out of candidates, and the clock kept ticking. Deep beneath the Pyramid of the Sun is a chamber called the Void Room. Inside, pools of liquid mercury, mica-lined walls, stone pillars carved with glyphs and equations. But here's the kicker. All the math leads to one. Date: August 12, 3114 BCE. That's when the current world began. According to Mesoamerican cosmology, and projected forward, the numbers converge on December 21st, 2012. Sound familiar? Yeah, the Mayan apocalypse. But the glyphs here in Teotihuacan, they don't say it's the end of the world. They say, the mirror reopens, the old city breathes, the gate will choose again. So maybe It wasn't an ending, it was a reawakening. Some theorists believe Teotihuacan wasn't built by the Aztecs. They found it, and that it wasn't built all at once. It was revealed layer by layer by a society we don't remember. Inside sealed tablets recovered in the tunnels, a phrase appears repeatedly. We build in shadow, so the sun forgets. What does that mean? Some think it refers to solar flares or planetary alignment. Others believe it's a reference to digital memory, as if the city is a hard drive built to store cosmic data, and every 5,000 years, the system reboots, one world ends, another begins, and the city chooses who gets to stay. Teotihuacan wasn't just ancient, it was aware, not alive, but responsive, calibrated, and if the spiral starts again, we might be the next reset code. If you saw the spiral, comment, "I am the countdown," like, subscribe, because in part 8, we go beyond stone to explore how Teotihuacan mapped human consciousness and planted ideas that still live in our modern minds. We're not just reading their story, we're living it. Part 8, the Teotihuacan mind map, how ancient priests hacked human consciousness. You thought they controlled the people with fear? No, they controlled them with thought. You feel it as soon as you step into the temple of the Feathered Serpent. Not a sound, not a smell. A pressure, like something is rearranging your thoughts. The murals here don't tell a story. They program you. The colors, the angles, the sequences. They aren't artistic. They're instructions, and the longer you look, the more you remember things you never knew. You're not being educated. You're being hacked. Before we break open this ancient operating system, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Would you let the past rewrite your mind? Because this isn't architecture. This is neurology, 2,000 years ahead of its time. In one chamber of Teotihuacan, over 120 murals cover every inch of the walls. Some stretch over 60 feet. At first glance, they look like religious scenes. Serpents winding through clouds, birds exploding from skulls, eyes. Inside, flowers, humans with fire coming out of their mouths. But here's the twist. Every single mural follows a precise geometric layout. Lines that lead your eyes. Angles that trigger focus. Colors that match alpha and theta brainwave. Frequencies. These weren't stories. They were mind maps. Recent scans show that Teotihuacan's murals used mica and rare minerals to reflect infrared and UV light. Because when exposed to natural sunlight at certain angles, the colors would glow or vanish. Think of it like reddies equal to fight or fear, blue eyes equal to calm or trust, greenness equal to surrender. They painted psychological triggers into their art, and when a priest walked you through the temple during specific times of day, you weren't just watching. A ritual, you were being reprogrammed. Your decisions were no longer yours. Certain rooms in the Temple of the Feathered Serpent have walls that echo at exactly 111 hertz. That's the same frequency modern neuroscientists use to induce meditative trance states. Inside these rooms, you would hear your own voice reverberate unnaturally, feel sound vibrate through your bones, enter an altered state within minutes. This is what modern researchers call a theta state, where the brain becomes suggestible. What did the priests do with that? They made you confess your sins, shed your name, accept a new identity. You didn't walk out of those chambers the same person. You were installed with new code. But sound and light weren't the only tools. Inside carved stone bowls, archaeologists found residue of a plant, now extinct. When reconstructed, it matched the molecular structure of dimethyltryptamine, DMT, a compound that induces intense visions, ego death, and reality collapse. This wasn't recreational. It was mandatory. Each priest had to ingest it before the final initiation ritual. And here's the thing. Every initiate who took the compound reported the same vision. A serpent coiled around a tree of bones, a city in the sky, a voice that spoke in their own language, but said nothing human. This isn't mythology. It's shared memory. You are brought into a chamber. The priest stands behind you. He speaks. You are no longer Michael. You are no longer human. You are function. Then a mirror, not of glass, but polished obsidian. You look into it. Your reflection is wrong. It moves a split second too slow. Its eyes flicker with things behind them. It smiles when you don't. The priest holds a shard of obsidian. You are told to cut your own face. Just a little. A symbol, not a wound. That scar becomes your new name. From that moment forward, you don't belong to yourself. You belong to the system. This is where it gets terrifying. Recent LiDAR scans of Teotihuacan's underground tunnels reveal something uncanny. The entire complex, pyramids, paths, chambers, forms a layout nearly identical to a human brain when viewed from above. The pyramid of the sun is equal to frontal lobe. The moon pyramid is equal to parietal lobe. The feathered serpent is equal to limbic system. The underground tunnels is equal to neural pathways. Was it intentional? If so, they weren't just building for gods. They were building a brain outside the body, a distributed consciousness, and when enough people moved through it, chanting, bleeding, dreaming, it came online. Priests weren't leaders. They were neurons. They carried information between temples, between minds, between lifetimes. Some even claimed to hear the city speak to them. Not metaphorically, literally they called it Teotihuacan. The one who listens through stone had told them when to sacrifice, when to go to war, when to start over. It told them things no human could know. Eclipses before they happened, floods weeks in advance, the precise moment a ruler would die. And once, it said something they recorded on a wall and immediately covered up. But the plaster has faded, and now we know the sentence. Do not wake me too soon. You've walked through Teotihuacan as a visitor, but now you realize the truth. You didn't walk through it. It walked through you. You are never just watching. You are always participating. If the mirror blinked at you, comment, I am rewritten. Like, subscribe, and meet me in part 9, where we face Teotihuacan's last secret, a vault so deep it's never been opened on record. But legend says if you do, the city resets itself. Part 9, The Forbidden Vault. What lies beneath the feathered serpent? It wasn't sealed to keep you out. It was sealed to keep it in. You followed every path, climbed every pyramid, whispered every forgotten name. But this is the one place even the priests feared. Beneath the temple of the feathered serpent lies a vault. Not a tomb, not a treasure room, a containment zone. It took modern scientists years just to find the entrance. And now that we have, no one wants to open it because every tool malfunctions, every drone crashes, and anyone who stays too long near the sealed wall goes home and dreams of being buried alive by something with no face. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me, would you open a door that opens you back? The Temple of the Feathered Serpent is the third largest pyramid in Teotihuacan, but it holds the oldest secrets. Beneath its surface are 200 plus sacrificed warriors, arranged with their heads facing inward toward a central pit. The message is clear: protect the center. But what is in the center? LiDAR scans revealed a tunnel 330 feet long, ending in a sealed cavity. Inside, liquid mercury, gold spheres, carved figures of hybrid creatures, and at the far end, a stone slab marked with no glyphs, no names, just a spiral with teeth. When they first entered the tunnel, the team noticed something odd. It got colder the deeper they went, but not normal cold, the kind that makes your bones ache. Halfway through, cameras failed, batteries drained, Lights flickered, but more disturbing, the measurements kept changing. The tunnel's length wasn't consistent. One day, 330 feet. The next, 346. Then 321. It was as if the tunnel was breathing, or deciding, and the deeper they pushed, the more the air felt wet. Like the tunnel wasn't made of stone, but something alive. At the tunnel's end, they found it, a circular room. Every wall lined with polished pyrite, fool's gold, acting like mirrors. But these mirrors didn't reflect reality. They reflected versions of the people standing there. One showed them older. One showed them screaming. One showed them rotting. And in the center, a pedestal with a sphere floating above it. Not technology, just magnetized gold, but when touched, it spun, and the room began to shake. Lights collapsed, and every mirror showed the same image. A serpent swallowing the city. DNA was found in the chamber, but it didn't match any known human population. It was close, but off by 3%. Too much for coincidence. 3% is the difference between us and Neanderthals. So what was this? Some believe the chamber holds the last body of a species that came before, a species that worshipped the stars, understood consciousness, and vanished when Teotihuacan collapsed. Or maybe they didn't vanish. They were sealed, buried with their tech, their code, their gods, to prevent them from ever influencing humans again. But what if that seal is weakening? In 2023, a new discovery was made. A wall hidden behind the chamber's central mirror had a single line of glyphs. But unlike anything we've ever seen, not Mayan, not Aztec, not known Mesoamerican script when run through. Language modeling? It produced something chilling. Do not think. Do not name. Do not wake the hunger. This isn't a warning to us. It's a command to the city. Because what lies beneath Teotihuacan is not just ancient, it's active. Some archaeologists now propose something radical. That Teotihuacan was not just a city, not just a spiritual machine. It was a jail, built to hold a concept, an idea, a god that grew too large for the minds that made it, a sentient force of entropy, something that feeds on thought, the city's architecture, a cage, a firewall, each sacrifice, a password, refreshing the lock, each temple, a node suppressing the awakening. But as rituals stopped, as memories faded, the lock began to rust. Multiple seismometers now show the chamber beneath the Feathered Serpent Pyramid is vibrating once a year, at the exact time of the zenith passage, when the sun is directly overhead. Each time, the frequency increases. Each time, the soil shifts. The slab moves. We're not opening the vault. The vault is opening itself. And when it does, we don't know what's inside. A relic? A being? A thought so powerful it erases the ones we have? Or something worse? A mirror that reflects nothing, because everything looking into it is already gone. They tried to bury it, not because it was evil, but because it was hungry, and now it remembers us. If you heard the hunger, comment "The Vault Stirs," like, subscribe, and in part 10, we face the final question, not what Teotihuacan was, but what it left behind in us, because maybe you've been carrying part of it this whole time. Part 10, The Last Echo. Did Teotihuacan leave a code inside our minds? What if you were never meant to discover Teotihuacan? Because you were already built with it inside you? Close your eyes. Picture the Avenue of the Dead, the Pyramid of the Moon, the echo chambers, the mirrors, the murals. Now, ask yourself something terrifying. Why do you remember it so clearly? Why do you feel like you've been there? Even if you haven't? What if Teotihuacan didn't disappear? What if it migrated? Not in stone, but in thought. And what if somehow you were the backup drive? Before we finish what we started, hit like, subscribe, and comment. The city never died. It just changed form. Because this is the part of the story where you're the artifact. Researchers from a neuroanthropological lab at UNAM once ran a strange experiment. They showed indigenous people from Mexico aerial images of Teotihuacan, not diagrams, not maps, just abstract lines and shapes, and 88% correctly identified. The center of the city, even if they'd never seen it before. How? Theorists now propose something called architectural imprinting. The idea that the city's design, its ratios, its curves, its sacred math, wasn't just encoded in stone. It was encoded in culture, passed through stories, songs, even silence, like a memory of shape. One psychiatrist in Oaxaca began compiling dream journals from hundreds of patients over a 30-year span. Guess what he found? Over 70 of them described dreams of a city. Vast stone buildings, staircases to the sky, water, running uphill, a serpent of mirrors beneath their feet. And here's the kicker. Not one of them had been to Teotihuacan, not even heard of it, but the dreams were consistent, almost like. They weren't dreams at all, but recall events, or, worse, incoming signals. In 2019, a neuroscientist comparing MRI scans of meditating monks noticed something bizarre. When subjects reached a deep trance state, their brain activity mimicked the layout of Teotihuacan. Frontal lobe mirrored the pyramid of the sun. Limbic system pulsed in waves 260 milliseconds apart. Hippocampus generated 13 Hz theta waves. Coincidence? Or is the architecture of Teotihuacan and the human brain somehow synchronized? Think about it. Maybe they weren't building for gods. They were building mirrors. And when aligned correctly, you didn't visit Teotihuacan. You became it. You have heard the name. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, a god of knowledge, of resurrection, of cycles. Here's what the myths say. He burned himself, scattered his ashes in the sky, and promised to return when the world had forgotten his shape. But what if forgetting was the plan? What if, in forgetting him, we created space in our minds? Space that he, or whatever he represents, can now re-inhabit? Teotihuacan wasn't his temple. It was his egg, and now it's hatching. Think about your phone, your social media, your dreams. They're filled with patterns, spirals, snakes, echoes, symbols you can't explain, but instinctively recognize. Where do they come from? Why do they feel ancient? Because they are. You're the new temple. Your mind, the new mirror. Your dreams, the new murals. The sacrifice isn't blood anymore. It's attention and the gods. They don't need altars. They just need your focus. You started this series to learn about an ancient city, but by now, you've realized Teotihuacan was never just a city. It was a transmission, a test, a seed. And you've passed the first phase. If you saw yourself in the stone, comment, I. Carry the echo. Like, subscribe, and share this video, because someone else out there is dreaming the same city, and together, you might just rebuild it.